Today, we're going to be taking a look at this 12-volt, 100 amp hour LiFePO4 battery that Unowix sent me to review. I've been thinking about getting a battery like this to set up a backup power for my ham radio shack. So it was good timing that they reached out and asked if I wanted to review this. But I think before I do that, I'm going to bring this thing along on vacation with me and test it with my portable ham radio setup and see how it does there. Now before I get started with the review, I just want to let you guys know this is really just for demonstration purposes. I'm not affiliated with the Unowix at all, so make sure that if you buy one of these batteries, you follow all of the instructions and recommendations that come with the battery or are on the website. Now that that's out of the way, let's bring the camera in and take a closer look at this thing. So there's not too much remarkable about the battery packaging. It feels on par with other batteries of this size and composition. It does have a strap at the top so you can lift it up easily and carry it around if you need to, and two terminal posts on top. The red one, of course, is positive. The black one is negative. Now, Unowix did include a couple of bolts, which I will thread into the terminals now. And with the bolts, there's a couple of dust caps as well. Overall width of the battery is 12 and 13/16 inches. Height of the battery to the top of the case looks to be just a little shy of 8.5 inches. And overall depth looks to be about 7 3/4 inches. Now I don't have a real accurate scale, but overall weight of the battery seems to be somewhere around 23.5 pounds. To charge up the battery, I'm going to be using this Victron BlueSmart IP67 charger that I just bought. Now, if you want to learn more about the charger, I'm going to make a separate video on that. So check the links in the description below if you're interested in learning more about the charger. But for now, what I'm going to do is make up a pigtail with ring terminals on one end to bolt to the battery terminals and an Anderson power pole connector on the other so that I can hook up various devices to the battery easily. So I made up my pigtail in Anderson power pole connections for the charger, and I let the battery charge overnight. Let's take a look at the Victron app so you can kind of see what happened while the battery was charging. So one of these days I'll figure out how to screen record from my phone, but for now we'll just look at this way. You can see here that the overall status of the battery is that it's now at storage mode, meaning it's fully charged and just sort of being maintained by the charger. You can see current voltage is 13.52 with no current being sent into the battery. Now if we look at the history, you can see overall elapsed time the charger's been connected is 13 hours and 1 minute. But over here shows more of the charging statistics that kind of went on last night. You can see that it took about 5 hours for the battery to charge, and it absorbed about 55.9 amp hours, meaning that it was about half charged when it arrived in the mail yesterday. You can see that it recognized the battery type as lithium-ion. The starting voltage was 13.61 and the ending voltage was 14.2. So now that the battery is charged, I'm going to get it packed up and loaded into the car and ready for my trip. So my plan, if I can make it happen, is to use the battery all week and not charge it. But I am going to bring the charger just in case I need it. So we're down here in Delaware now, and I'm going to do the first test of the battery from the parking lot of the condo we're staying in. I've got my Yaesu FT891 ham radio set up here and plugged into the battery, which I've left in the box for now for convenience sake. I've got my power cord set up with fuses, and I've got my power meter here so I can keep a rough idea on how much power I'm consuming. And for an antenna, I'm going to be using a ham stick on the fender for this first test. So I've been out here for about 45 minutes or so, listening and making a few contacts on my ham radio. I've only used about 1 amp hour so far, so I've got plenty of reserve on the battery. But I've checked everything out and nothing seems to be heating up or working abnormally. So for an initial test, I think we're good to go for the real run tomorrow at the park. I'll check in with you guys when I get there. I'm at Cape Henlopen in Delaware. I've got the Unowix battery set up with my Yaesu FT891 ham radio, and I'm going to operate in the back of my car here for a while and see if I can make some contacts around the country. And while I do, we'll see how this Unowix 100 amp hour battery holds up.
Mike Oscar, Missouri. You're in Texas. Our name is Bob. Southwest of Michigan. Wisconsin, Whiskey, India. Quebec, South. Indiana. Connecticut to Massachusetts, 57. Mike Alpha, thank you. Massachusetts, Kansas, Kilo Sugar. Oregon. Baton Rouge, Anchorage, Louisiana. 3-1 Alaska. North Dakota. Central Colorado.
So I've been out here for about 2 hours making contacts on the ham radio. I've used about 4 amp hours or so according to my meter, and the voltage is still holding strong at 13.17. So this battery is doing great. But I'm going to be here all week, and we're going to keep using it and see how it goes. So I'm back home from vacation, and the Unowix battery did great. I used it 5 or 6 times for ham radio activations throughout the week, and never had to charge it. In fact, I think I've only depleted it maybe about 50 amp hours or so. So I got the battery charged up overnight after the trip, and here's a look at the stats. You can see from this panel on the history, I only used about 15.5 amp hours, quite a bit less than what I thought. So during my outing, I'd been monitoring my power usage with one of these. In total, I operated the battery for about 10 hours, and according to this, averaged about 5 amp hours. So that's kind of where I thought I was getting maybe a 40 to 50 amp hour usage out of the battery. But according to the charging stats, I guess I was way over on my estimate. Either that or this thing's not accurate at all. So I think this is going to work well for my ham radio needs. I'll be able to use it for extended trips, whether I'm going in the car or even camping, as long as I don't have to carry it too far. And I think it'll especially work well once a year on Ham Radio Field Day weekend. I think I could use this, pair it with a solar panel, and I'd be good to go for the whole weekend. I wouldn't need any kind of generators or anything like that. But having said all that, a battery like this is really intended to be used in sort of an energy storage situation. One application that comes to mind is a camper or an RV. Now, you guys have probably seen van lifers and other people on YouTube pair up batteries like this with solar panels like this one on their RVs to provide off-grid power when they are out in the boondocks. And in fact, I had a small pop-up camper that this would have been perfect for. I could have replaced the lead-acid battery and the old lead-acid battery charger that was in it with a Unowix battery and a more modern charger like the Victron, and I would have basically doubled or maybe even tripled my energy storage capacity in that pop-up. And that would have allowed me to stay off the grid longer or power more devices than I was able to with the lead-acid battery. But you're not limited to powering a camper with this. In fact, I think what I'm going to do here is in the house, I'm going to set this up so that I can power my ham radio station from it permanently. That way, I can sort of reduce my regular energy usage by just a little bit and maybe use the solar panel to kind of keep the battery charged and not rely on AC power to run those radios. Now, without having multiple batteries tied together, I won't be able to power much more than the ham radio station or maybe a handful of small appliances or lights, but it always is a good idea to have another solution or a backup solution for power in case the grid goes down, maybe during a storm or some other reason. So if you've been considering getting a 100 amp hour LiFePO battery, you may want to take a look at Unowix. If you want to learn more, there'll be links in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.